morning I thought I'd talk about artificial intelligence. Obviously, it's been getting a lot of attention of late. I thought I'd really break it up into three buckets. Firstly, just talking about some background and why now and why it's interesting now specifically. Secondly, what you can do with it, just give you some examples of what people are actually doing to prove that it's not theoretical. And then finally, just a bit more about how you can benefit, basically how can you make money out of AI. And also, we'll probably get some questions on who loses as a result of it. So I guess really there's been three waves here. We're sort of at the start, I guess, of that third wave now. But the first wave was inference. So I'm sure many of you use Netflix or Spotify or whatever. It works out your preferences, the particular style, romantic comedy or jazz or whatever, and feeds you more stuff that's similar to what you like. The more recent one that really got a lot of attention in November of last year was ChatGPT, which is generation. So you can actually use this thing to write Word documents, create pictures. You can use it to help you code. So one of the most interesting ones I've seen or heard about so far is for software developers. If you have this thing, which is basically a tutor or a co-pilot beside you, you can make a software developer apparently 10 times more productive. So obviously meaning they can generate 10 times as much output in the same amount of time, or you can get rid of 9 of your 10 and have the same output. So, and that's a big generalization, but certainly it's an improvement. And then I'll show you some pictures from a company called Midjourney, which is a generative AI software company. And it just shows you how we've gone from having some pretty terrible AI to some very impressive AI. And so at the moment, we're sort of in this stage 3, I guess, the interaction stage, which is a bit of a work in progress. But things like Microsoft Copilot, where you might be able to say to Microsoft, go through all my stuff, including the captioning from the morning meeting today and all my emails and all my chat comments, aggregate it all and write me something to clients about how to pitch AI and what they should buy. So some pretty impressive outcomes. Now, it's obviously got teething issues and will continue to do so, but in the long run has some pretty significant implications, and also fraudulent activity. So we'll talk a little bit about this in the preso, but you can basically make the computer make anyone say anything, which is a little scary. And probably just the last one, I think it's interesting to think about Tesla in the context of these algorithms that have learned slowly and got smarter. And basically there's a tipping point where it goes from being mildly useful to materially useful. And Tesla and their autonomous cars hasn't got there yet. But if it follows the curve, I guess the intelligence curve that these AI models have followed, it's actually fairly likely that they will have a game-changing advancement at some point in the not too distant future. So I'm not going to go through all of this other than to point out that the kind of key tipping point was back in 2018 when Google invented this thing called a transformer, which was basically a model that's self-learning. The green line in the bottom right-hand side shows you the amount of data this stuff was able to process and learn from. So we kind of grew slowly. That starts in 2012, but it was really 2018 that it kicked off. And we've had the left-hand side is the amount of data it's been trained on, basically. So more and more data obviously creates more and more intelligence. And the guy who runs NVIDIA basically said it's these transformers that made our AI jump to warp speed. But in English, what's happened is it's gone from being marginally useful to materially useful. What it can do, I've talked about some of this. Interesting to see that some of it's in the top 1 or 99 percentile for the US graduate recruitment exam. So there's some pretty smart technology out there, but it's also a really, really slow learner. So the best example would be the bottom one, where in Queensland, if you've got kids and they're going to do a driver's license test, they've got to clock up 100 hours before they're allowed to do the test, 100 hours on the road. The Tesla autopilot's taken 70,000 GPU hours, so a lot of time to learn the same thing. So it needs a lot of data and a lot of time, but it gets there in the end. I thought I'd explain it in a picture. This is probably a better way to do it. So the left-hand side, this is that company I mentioned, Midjourney, which is you basically type in, create me a picture of a bloke with black hair and blue eyes, and off it goes. So left-hand side, you can see in February 22, it was pretty crappy. April 22, pretty crappy. July, getting a bit better. But in November of last year, it kind of moved from being clearly obvious that it was just made up to pretty hard to tell the difference between reality and made up. And the May 23 version on the right-hand side, to me, looks exactly like a photo. So the point is there's been this massive sort of step change in the quality, as I said, going from marginally useful to materially useful in the last 6 months. And that's from that Matt Barry article I shared a couple of weeks ago with the network. So just some other examples, what you can do. AI can write books. This lady on the left-hand side, Jane Friedman, basically found that somebody had taught AI all of her, or fed AI all of the books and said, write some books, and they were selling them on Amazon as her. Pretty amazing. She had to fight with Amazon to get them removed, but you can make AI write books in the style of a particular person, or in your case, write emails in your style to your clients. We all know of Dr. Google. Well, there's also Dr. ChatGPT, which apparently is a lot better than Dr. Google. There was an academic study where patients 79% of the time preferred Dr. Google to real doctor. That's because it's got more empathy. You've obviously got to tell it to be empathetic, but it's got more empathy. Gives you a 4 times longer response and 4 times better quality. So pretty amazing what you can do with this stuff. Other examples, these are all, 3 of the 4 here are AI-generated images. So, make Tom Cruise movie Top Gun 17 and put certain things in it. Bottom right-hand side, Harry Potter, make him country and western. And in the middle, Tom Hanks just yesterday was in the paper saying, just be aware there's a video out there of people who've AI generated me and said, buy this dental thing. It's not actually him. So fraud is pretty amazing. And the right-hand side is a bikini model, which I had to censor in order to get it into the morning meeting. You can imagine what an AI algorithm would do if you said, make a bikini model on the internet to capture people's attention and help me sell bikinis. That lady is fully automatically generated. So some amazing stuff there. Software I mentioned arguably make people 10 times more productive. In the e-commerce or technical support side, this CEO in India fired 90% of his staff and used this AI stuff. What's interesting from my perspective is it should have a massive improvement in customer advocacy or happiness. Customers went from having basically 2 and a bit hours sitting on the phone trying to get problems solved to having, 3 minutes or 13 minutes or something. So massive improvement from customer perspective. You get the answer that you want. You're not spending hours on the phone, problem solved, and it saved him a pile of money. So the good and the bad, obviously this has potentially some huge implications in terms of productivity and, interestingly, creativity. One thing I think is quite interesting too is the capacity for this to teach and educate people. So you might be able to get a generative AI agent to help your kids with maths or science or whatever, things like that, help you learn, that co-pilot or tutor concept that I talked about. The other thing is the potential to materially improve lifespans. You can obviously have your own sort of PA GP if you've got, as in general practitioner, if you've got some data with like an Apple Watch or whatever, it can monitor it all, look at things and give you advice, and an improved drug design as well. So potentially higher quality of living, less time doing grunt work, more time doing value add, and infinitely scalable and will get better with time. In terms of the bad, I guess it's a bit like Donald Trump. It hallucinates and gaslights. So it's very convincing and very convinced that it's right about everything. Even if it doesn't actually have the data, it'll make it up and claim it's real. So there was actually a lawyer in the US who got in a lot of trouble for basically using ChatGPT in a courtroom, and it made up a bunch of legal precedences that he presented to the judge, which didn't even exist. So can be a little problematic and clearly has biases like everyone. So it takes a big pile of data, does the maths, programs it all, and obviously inherent in that is some biases. And of course, I guess the scary bit is it can do bad things. We talked a little tiny bit about fraud, but if it doesn't have the guardrails on it, you can work ways around that, and you can get it to teach you, if you're a bad actor, how to do bad things, basically. So they need some real guardrails to make sure it's safe. And of course, it consumes an outrageous amount of power and water. And the question then comes down to should it or could it be regulated? And finally, I guess the one everyone always asks too is the Terminator-like scene, world domination. Is it going to take over the world? Unlikely, certainly not of its own fruition. If a bad actor got their hands on a, uncontrolled version, I guess it could teach it or ask it to do bad things. But to quote Mark Andreessen, who's the guy that invented the internet browser, he said it doesn't have goals, it doesn't want to kill you, it's not alive. So I think it's unlikely. So what does it all mean? Well, clearly it's a big event. You're going to get some big productivity that we talked about. But look, overall, I think it is really a large opportunity. I guess the context I think about is, did the printing press destroy books or cameras destroy painting? Did Google destroy advertising or Google destroy the home barbecue? The answer is no, they didn't, but they certainly did cannibalize those legacy industries materially and then grow the size of the industry and do very well for themselves. So I think they'll definitely cause damage to some legacy industries, but I think there's a big opportunity to do more with less and kind of make the public better informed. So lots of opportunity there. And then I guess I got one last slide, which was how do we make money out of it? So obviously the key thing with AI is data. So obviously data is the new oil, and those that have the most data will win here. And this is why I think the hyperscalers and the likes of Meta and Tesla will do the most, because they've got the most data. So the company with most data can learn the most, have the smartest algorithms and make the most out of it. And then there's some sort of second level derivatives in Australia.